JP here with Meets Fab and Customs. I'm gonna mix things up here a little bit. Actually, I've been mixing things up a little bit a few times now. But anyways, I've done a few videos here, and everyone sees this yellow car in the background. I've had a lot of people ask about this yellow car and what it is, and what's the story behind it, and why the hell I'm not working on it. So what this car is, it's a 1966 Chevy II SS car. So this car got brought up in, I just went through some paperwork, and I'll show you the paperwork. I thought it was 1982, but it was actually 1981, October of 1981. This car got brought up from California. My dad drove it up from California back then, and Huntington Beach, California, all the way to Paris, Ontario. So, as anyone knows, I don't know the exact mileage, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's probably about 3,500 miles, and I'm guessing, so if anyone wants to correct me, feel free. I'm just guessing. I know it's roughly in that. So the car was driven up then, and then the car was taken apart, and it was painted, and it's never been on the road since. And it's like I said, it's a factory SS car. It's a 283 car Power Glide, and that, but it's not going to be anymore. It's the car's all virgin metal. It all has the original metal. It's been painted, and that. So the other thing with this car, I've been collecting parts because my father owned one of these brand new, an L79 Chevy II, and rare car because it was actually a Canadian car. Had the yellow firewall on it, and that. And as you start doing more and more research on these things, the Canadian Chevy IIs were very rare. There was very few of them that came out of Oshawa. The way to tell is, like I said, the firewall on them is painted the color of the body, and that, whereas the American ones are black. So it's that's a little info for you, because they made the Acadians, and the Acadians, to all my American friends, are the same as the Chevy II. It's just what we call them up here in Canada. So, like I said, there were very few of them. So my father had an original L79 car, and it was yellow. This car here is originally blue. It's originally a blue car. I'm not trying to hide anything. It is what it is. I want the car my father had. And we all know how muscle cars and everything have gone through the roof. And I'm going to build this car to be what it is. He passed away, heck, it's almost 20 years now. And that's why this car is going to be built to what I want. And you know what? I've had many people say, well, make it an LS, do this, do that. I don't want an LS. That's easy. And don't get me wrong, the car's too good. It's too good of a car to make this car an LS with Mustang II and all that stuff. And, that seems to be the scapegoat for everyone anymore. Oh, LS it and put a Mustang II in it. Yeah, will it stop better? Will it drive better? Will it run better? Damn right it will. But I've been collecting parts for this car, since I was in high school. And the first part I bought for this car was an intake manifold I bought off my father. We'll go through the engine that I've been collecting parts. We'll go through it. I finally have all the 327 stuff, all the proper 327 stuff. I've got a 327 block, engine, heads, for a Chevy II, and that. And as anyone who knows these Chevy IIs, that block is gold. They are tough to find. I lucked out on it. Story behind that block, I had a buddy who works at an engine shop here in Edmonton, and he called me. And called me out of the blue. He goes, I've got a 327 here out of a Chevy II. I'm like, no you don't. Called him out on it. I'm like, no you don't. He goes, I do. Guy just brought it in, and he wants me to build it for his square body. Well, at that point, it wasn't going in a square body. I knew where it was going. And did I overpay for it? Probably did. But I wanted 327. Like I said, as all Chevy II guys know, those things are gold. They're gold. 283s you can find, they're tough too. And to find a 327, it's hard to find. And so I got the 327. I got, like I said, the intake. First part I ever bought, it was off my, it was actually off my father. And it's an L79 intake. I don't know if it's the one that came off his car. Could very well be. Because everyone knows back in the 60s and that, you would You change your intakes and all that stuff, and throw them up on a shelf, and you know, it could very well be. I'm not saying whether it is or whether it isn't. I know his car, and this is another rumor that I'm gonna squash. And you know, a lot of people don't know this, but you know, people around where this car came from. This is not my dad's original car. This is not my dad's original car, and this is not the car I had in high school. So I'm gonna squash that rumor, and that I know in the YouTube world doesn't mean anything, but you know, I've heard that, oh, it's your dad's, it's not my dad's original car. My dad's original car ended up getting stolen, and who knows where it ever ended up. No clue. I have the serial number for it. I happened to luck out. I found an old insurance slip for it way back when. I have the serial number for it, but the car got stolen, and who knows where that car ever ended up. So anyone in Southern Ontario ever finds a yellow 66 Chevy II L79 car with a yellow firewall, I really want to know about it. And that, because that chances are, because rumor has it they make very few Canadian L79 cars. So, on that note, and that, so let's, so this car came up, and this car is so complete, and that, like, we'll go through some of the paperwork I have for this car here on how complete it is. So, right here. So I never realized till actually I was watching Dennis Collins. And if anyone's having an opportunity to watch Dennis Collins, Coffee Walk, that man knows his numbers. And I love watching that show because it's very educational. It's hugely educational. You learn a ton if you want to learn about original stuff and all that. So I never realized in California, that's where the pink slip started. You know, you want to run for pinks and you want to, you know, all that. Well, there's the original pink slip for this car. Right there. That's the original pink slip for this car from 1966. Now, if you look here on the original pink, that number right there. That number right there. That's the license plate number. And I'm not very knowledgeable on California stuff. I'm not. So if people out there can set me in the right direction, that would be great. But if you notice that's the plate number that came with this car back in 02-14-66 when it was issued. So February 14th of 66, this was issued. And so if we look, oh, here's your 1967 right there. That's your 1967 to 1982 when the car was brought up here. So I also have the front one. It's put away with all the other parts. So looking at that, that's how complete this car is. I have the original license plate and the original pink slip. And that. So I will be the second owner of this car, is what I will be whenever it happens. So here, and this here I find funny right here. That right there, that's your original owner's manual. You get an owner's manual now, heck, those things are like encyclopedias, they're so thick. This here, so you know, at one point here, February 25th of 1974, it had 71,000 miles on it, and that's when the filter got changed. What do we got? Last oil change. And to be honest, I believe that's my father's handwriting. And so I can't say for 100% sure, but I believe that's my father's handwriting. And so it's, because it don't look like that. I believe that's my father's. But in 1981, when this car came up, 75,741 is what was on it. But these are the owner manual. Like it's crazy how how much things have changed and over the years. So that's what that is. So like I said, my father, he passed away of cancer a lot of years ago, and I always used to joke around with him. And before he got sick, you know, the day he dies, he's going to end up leaving me a car with the instruction manual with it. Well, you know, little story here. The night my father died, he died at home. And this car was around, and I parked in the garage. And I remember I walked out the garage, and I looked at the car, and I'm like, unbelievable. Instruction manual on the roof of the car. Well, there's that same instruction manual on the roof of this car. Right there. So, it's a little bit of history of, you know, what it is. The other thing is I was going through all the parts on this car. And it's funny how things at the time don't mean anything to you, but as you go through stuff, it means more to you. So this here's back in the day. You didn't really have the internet. It's just sort of starting to get your parts and all that. Well, right here, that's my father's handwriting. These are the parts that he knew this car needed. Those are the pages. I didn't find that till 15 years later. Hidden in a box, all the parts. So it's little things like that that at the time you're like, you don't really think of it, and it's like, oh, okay, cool. So now we'll wander over to this engine, and this is sort of what got me working on this car. The car sat around long enough. It's time to work on it. It's time to get this thing ready to roll. So right here, and like I said, this intake right here, that was the first car part I ever bought, was this intake. I actually bought it off my father, paid $100 for it, and that was probably about I'm guessing about 1988. I bought that intake, and that intake has been on a lot of vehicles, and I always kept it. Always kept it, never got rid of it. So that's what that is. And by no means am I a guru on numbers with Chevy IIs. I know it just enough to be dangerous. But with the internet, I'm starting to find more and more out. But if you want to pull that casting number, that number right there is a 327 for a Chevy II. That number there. Now, do I know if it's an L79? I don't know. I'm not going to pretend it is. I don't know, because it's got no number on here. Now, I heard a rumor. I don't know if I read it on the internet. I don't know. And we all know the internet doesn't lie. It always tells the truth. That's sarcasm. So I read the Canadian cars never had the serial number. And someone in the Chevy II land could set me straight. But I believe that the Chevy IIs made in Canada never had a number on that pad right there. And I don't know. I have no clue. I'm not pretending this to be something it's not. I don't know. All I know is this is a 327 from a Chevy II. Now, the way to tell was that casting number that I showed you. The other way to tell this is a Chevy II is this thing's got the recessed oil filter. Right there. Right there. That's the only GM block that has that. Is any small block in a Chevy II has a recessed oil filter, so they fit better. The other thing is right there, the front sump oil pan. That's another Chevy II thing, so they could get the steering and everything in. The exhaust manifolds both come back. Those are tough to find. I happened to buy a parts car and opened the trunk, and it had two of them in there. I lucked out because I have both of them. But like I said, I've been collecting parts for this because I always wanted a 327 Chevy II since 1988. I'd slowly collect parts. Now, another little history down memory lane here. So if you notice that engine stand right there, that engine stand right there. That engine stand was built by my father before I started playing with cars. And I still have it. My first motor that was ever built with me and my father was built on that engine stand. So that engine stand, I used to live in Ontario, and I moved out to Edmonton, and sort of things got moved around and things got sold, whatever. That's a whole other story I don't want to get into. So I was over at a buddy of mine's place, and I looked, he's got an engine on this engine, and I'm like, where'd you get that engine stand from? And this is when I picked this Chevy II up from Ontario, and he looks at me, he goes, why? That's my engine stand. That's my stand that I got from my father way back when. And so it ended up costing me a case of beer, and I got my engine stand back. So that engine stand right there has a lot of sentimental value, and it's had a few engines on it. 1 or 2 engines have been on that engine stand. So that's sort of what we got going on there with the engine. The other thing, while I'm here, I lucked out on one of those. So this here is another Chevy II specific part. The bell housing for the 4-speed. Usually these are at 9 o'clock. Chevy 2s are at 7 o'clock because these things are so freaking tight. And so that's another, I lucked out on that as well. And it happened to be, actually it was in the same car those exhaust manifolds came out of. And so it was that was a worthwhile $500 buy, and I ended up selling the wheels that came with it. It said old Coke bottle Kragers. Heck, I sold them I think for $600. So I did okay on that one. So now, here's the other thing on this car. Right here. That's vehicle inspection. So you know how we're all green and everything now. I believe, and I could be mistaken, these vehicle inspections were used for pollution. Because this car actually had a smog pump on it. And I actually still have the exhaust manifolds for this car. And they're actually buried down in that mess. But that motor right there, we all talk about numbers matching. That's the original motor right there for this car. That is the 283 that came out of this car that drove from California to Paris, Ontario. And that is what that is. So it's to be honest, the only thing I'm missing off this car that is original is a power glide. I'm missing a power glide transmission. So that's all I'm missing. So actually I'll show you how nice these doors. So this here, like I said, this thing here is all, so here's how a door should open. That's how a door should open. Just like that. So this here, and I need to clean them. I need to steam these to soften this leather up. These are the original seats in this car. Right here. And the backs are just as good. The headliner, the California car, that's a new headliner. It got same as the carpet and that, but this is all the original. This is the original interior. It needs to be cleaned. The back seat's just as good and that. So this, you know, it needs to be, but the whole floor is like that. Love California cars. Absolutely love them. So that's, you know, these are all the original latches and everything. Like even look here at the chrome. The biggest problem that happened to the chrome on this car is down the bottom with being Huntington Beach. It got sandblasted. That's is what happened to it. And actually I just thought of something here. We were talking about how complete this car is with the license plates. So this right here, that right there, that came on this car, and heck, I had this on a vehicle when I was like 16 years old because I knew everything and my old man knew nothing, and I freaking destroyed it and then tried to touch up the paint. So I need to fix it. But this here came original on this car. So this car was sold in Huntington Beach at Groff Chevrolet. So I don't even know if they're still there or not anymore, but like I said, that's how complete this car is. So we're looking at the interior there, and another little story on when this car got bought. My old man told me this story, and heck, I was young when I got told this story. But he bought this car, and it was typical top of the seat sun rot on this car. So when he was down there, he met this Mexican fella who was he did interior work. So he said to my dad, he goes, "You come here tomorrow, bring a case of beer," because back in those days you brought beer to do everything, "and we'll go to a wrecking yard. And we're gonna fix your seat." And my dad's like, and what you got to remember, this is 1981. It's before you could just go on the old internet and buy seats and your seat covers. You couldn't get them. So this old Mexican fella's like, "Just bring a case of beer and we'll go and we'll sit outside tomorrow afternoon. We'll fix your seat." Okay. So He had no idea what he was doing, what was going on. So they go to the wrecking yard, and he's like, okay, go find any 66 GM car. I want the bottom seat and that off of it. So, my dad's like, okay. We don't have this problem up in Canada. They don't really get sun rot. So he's like, okay. So he goes and he finds one. And the Mexican fella's like, perfect. So he cuts the bottom off. All the bottom there, down by the carpet where the kicker and all that is. They bring it back, and they stitch it in. They stitch it. You can't even tell. You can't even tell. The material match is perfect. I looked at that seat, and to be honest, that's the last time I rode in this car. Was in that back seat. Still good. Still good. So it's pretty amazing how they do stuff, and it's great. But so now we come back here to the trunk, back here, and like I said, this whole. I gotta clean it out, but that's all. Anyone who knows these cars know where they rot. They rot in here. Like this car isn't rotten at all. But what do we got hidden in here? Oh, there's a Muncie. Right there. So, like I said, this car is a factory Power Glide car. I know that. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not trying to, say it's something it's not. But I'm building what I want. Because, I've always wanted this car. And trying to find an L79 car anymore, they're tough. They're tough to find, especially to find one in this shape. And now, but, while we're wandering up here we are under the hood. Right here. And it needs to be cleaned. It's kind of filthy. But that's how clean this car is. But like I was saying, if you get a Canadian car, this firewall is yellow. So I don't know what was different in the production line of the Canadian ones and the American ones, but that's how to tell if it's a Canadian car. If it's got a yellow firewall, it's a Canadian car. It still has the black and everything, but the firewalls, and I wish I could find the pictures of it. I got pictures around when my dad first got that car, and that's what it was. So as you can see, this is a power brake car. And it was also a power steering car, which it's not going to be now. And it had a sway bar, which is, which is kind of rare for these things. Because these cars were like your second car. These are your wife's car or whatever. They either made them to go fast and drag race them, or it was your second vehicle. It was the vehicle that, your wife or your, whatever, took for groceries and took the kids to school. My mother actually had a 67 one of these, and four-door car, and four-door 283 car, 67. And the motor is in a Chevy II right now. And that's still floating around the Ontario area. And that. So that's, and it's, like I said, this thing needs to be cleaned, but it's a factory Marina blue car. It's not a yellow car. And it's an SS. Like there's no denying it. And like you can see, there's your factory SS holes that everyone wonders what the measurements are to put them on because the quarters all rot out on these cars. Well, if anyone needs to know, that's a factory set right there. Right there is what that is. Same as these here. If you look how these are dimpled. Those are your factory flag holes for 283. So a lot of times when these fenders are replaced, that's just drilled. It isn't dimpled like that. And that. So it's, it's stuff like that you can tell. This thing here, it's virgin metal. Another thing, and if you look at the chrome on this car, and it's just because it's sat so long. These things here pit. And this does have some pits on it. And trust me, I'd love to have, a mint one. I would. But I'm kind of deciding right now on, I got all the original chrome. I got all the original emblems. But I also have a bunch of NOS emblems. And I'm in between whether I'm going to put the NOS emblems on it or if I'm going to put the original chrome on it. Like the back bumper, the chrome's not great, don't get me wrong, but it's got a Huntington Beach school parking pass on it from back in 1981. And actually, I was looking at it the other day. It's got a couple stickers on it if you start peeling them back. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but I got a while till I get there. So this is what we got going on with this car. And that, So people asking questions on this Chevy II, that's kind of the history of this car and what I have going on with it, and kind of where I'm going. So it's one of those, I finally started working on it. This car has been pushed to the side, moved around. This car has more trailer miles on it and pushed around garage miles than I think it's got actual miles on it. Like, it's been stored here, stored there, moved here, moved there. So yeah, so it's time to get this car done. It's time to, honestly, this car hasn't started and ran since 1981, 1982. So it's gonna be exciting to do that. So that's a scoop on this car. And anyone has any questions, hey, just comment down below. If anyone has any wisdom, comment down below, because like I said, I'm learning. And I'll be asking a ton of questions on the internet to different sites and all that. And, you know, typical internet, trying to get past the bullshit and find the reality. So, and anyone knows the reality, it makes life a lot easier. But if you like what you're watching here, and like I said, I'm going to carry on with this build as well. So I've got, you know, this Model A on the go that's sitting over there for a customer. And I'm going to carry on with this because this thing here has sat long enough, and it's time to get this thing on the road. So if you like what you're watching, you want to carry on watching, subscribe, then you get the first videos, like, share, you know, all that good stuff. And I appreciate everyone watching and sharing and that. And it's a little bit different, getting into a muscle car now, and appreciate it. And like I've always said, get out there and do something cool, build something cool, and that's how we get this stuff back out there. So I'm willing to learn. So send some comments, and everyone have a great day, and bye.